So we've been covering this truck strike in Canada all week, and at the end of the week, there are a couple of different images that kind of float around your head. Picture the cops stealing the fuel from the freezing truckers. You picture the smiling truckers talking about love and waving Canadian flags, totally non-threatening. But above all, you remember the hysteria of the people in charge as they look out on this sea of working-class people who are really sick of being pushed around, told what to inject into their bodies. The people in charge are extremely upset about this, hysterical. And it's hilarious. You can just picture our transportation secretary, little Pete Buttigieg, jumping up and down, shaking his little hands, screaming at the truck drivers, "Get off my bridge, you guys! Get off right now!" And it's not just Mayor Pete. You remember those angry tweets from that CNN contributor, the lady who suggested we should slash their tires, siphon their diesel fuel, throw them in prison. They're all Torquemada now. They're talking like they're scary. But keep in mind, these are not displays of power. This is not how confident people talk. These are squeaks of impotence. Our leaders are furious at the truckers because they know there's not a lot they can do about the truckers. They don't know anything about trucks, for one thing. How do you get a truck off a bridge, especially when it has no fuel or tires? They have no idea. You just order someone to do it. It's kind of like Uber Eats. Some guy trots out and removes the truck. The problem is that the people who drive the trucks don't feel like following orders anymore. They're ignoring Pete Buttigieg. If you actually want to move a big rig, you need tow truck operators. And those tow truck operators know truckers. They know truckers aren't racists. They're not Nazis, no matter how many times Joe Biden and Justin Trudeau claim they are. So some of them aren't inclined to help. David Allen, for example, is the president of Gary's Towing in Thunder Bay, Ontario. He told Canadian media, quote, "We have all the capabilities on our tow trucks to do it, but I don't think anyone would want to." Another tow truck operator called Randy Wan said that even if tow truck operators wanted to help carry out Pete Buttigieg's orders, it would be very hard. Quote, "In the end, the trucker's going to say whether you're taking that truck away or not." Now, there are technical reasons for this, which apparently don't teach at McKinsey. It turns out that trucks are heavy. They have air brakes and steel-belted tires. Some of the truckers remove their tires completely. So what now? Now's when you start to panic, and they definitely are. This afternoon, the Prime Minister of Canada, who clearly is Fidel Castro's illegitimate son, came out from hiding to threaten the protesters directly. Watch this.
If you joined the protests because you're tired of COVID, you now need to understand that you are breaking laws. The consequences are becoming more and more severe. You don't want to end up losing your license, end up with a criminal record, which will impact your job, your livelihood, even your ability to travel internationally, including to the U.S.
You could be breaking laws. That was the funniest part. These are people who literally don't care about the law at all. They believe they make the law. This is the Prime Minister who ordered the cops to steal people's fuel. There's no law that says you can't have fuel in Ottawa. He just made that up. Now he's lecturing them about the law. And Joe Biden, who is violating federal law on the grand scale every day by importing 2 million people illegally without your consent, he's upset about the law. Justin Trudeau is so upset he's threatening the truckers' children. Quote, "It's time to go home, especially if you have your kids with you," Trudeau said. Wouldn't want something to happen to them. Trudeau also attacked the protesters for closing the border. Only Justin Trudeau is allowed to do that, which he has done for more than a year. So what are we watching here? It's more than hypocrisy. What we're watching is panic. Justin Trudeau knows that nobody joined the protest because they're, quote, tired of COVID. They're tired of tyranny. They're tired of being told to inject something into their bodies they don't want, whose long-term effects cannot be known, sold by companies that are protected, that have immunity from public recourse. We also know that what they told us to do didn't work. The lockdowns didn't work. Johns Hopkins came out and said it the other day. Pretty conclusive. That's what people are mad about. They want their freedom back. They're not tired of the virus. They're tired of the leaders who use the virus to give themselves more power. And they're still doing it. Here's Ontario's Premier Doug Ford. He announced today that instead of lifting his province's useless mandates, he's going to steal the truckers' money, fine them, and then send them to jail.
There will be consequences for these actions, and they will be severe. We've already started by going after the money funding the illegal occupation. Yesterday, an Ontario court granted our request to freeze the funds from Give, Send, Go for the convoy. Fines for noncompliance will be severe, with a maximum penalty of $100,000 and up to a year imprisonment. We will also provide additional authority to consider taking away the personal and commercial licenses of anyone who doesn't comply with these orders.
When you start making threats like that, you've already lost. What you're showing is that you're impotent, and that's why you're unreasonable. That's why you're hysterical. That's why you're waving your arms around telling people they're going to prison. When you start stealing things from people outside the law, speaking of the law, everybody knows you're weak. So keep in mind that truckers raised $10 million on GoFundMe. That's a California company, but Canadian politicians had that effort shut down. Then Give, Send, Go, which is a Delaware company, raised almost the same amount, and Canadian politicians went after that money too. The Attorney General of Ontario successfully got a court order to freeze access to the $8.4 million raised on Give, Send, Go. Those funds were going to an Adopt a Trucker fundraising campaign. It was paying for, quote, housing, water, food, accommodations, and shuttle services for truck drivers in Ottawa. But all of that money has just been stolen by the Canadian government. It's been seized. All of this is pushing people away from government-issued currencies because they're in control of lunatics like the guy you just saw, and they're moving toward cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. Just like 18-wheelers on bridges, blockchain is pretty tough for the authorities to control. Therefore, here's how you know it's a threat. The crypto guys must be white supremacists. And lo and behold, that's exactly what they're now telling us.
It's an avenue not just to make a lot of money or lose a lot of money, but it's also an avenue for money laundering, and it's also a place where white supremacists apparently are taking options. I mean, it's problematic at best in so many ways.
It's problematic at best. How do people like that get on television? There should be an IQ requirement. But by putting dumb people in the anchor chair, they're perfectly compliant to the people in charge. Crypto is white supremacy. But the hysteria gives them away. As a trucker called Danielle Searle explained in Ottawa last night, these people are terrified. They're afraid of losing control. The blockade of the Windsor Bridge panicked them.
They blocked the Ambassador Bridge. Yeah, that's the busiest border crossing in between Canada and USA. The most trade goes to that port, so it's hitting them good, you know.
So the downside of all of this is it's turning Canada into a legitimate police state, for real. Here's one of Doug's Ford's police officers harassing a woman at her home because of something she wrote on Facebook in support of the truckers. It's one of the creepiest clips you're going to see today. Watch.
This is just some information about peaceful protests. That's all it is.
Okay, so you saw something on my Facebook?
No, on the Facebook group.
So the Ontario Provincial Police are watching what people are doing on Facebook in different groups, whether or not they're commenting, participating, liking, and you guys are now doing service calls to give people information about peaceful protests.
Yeah, it's just a proactive measure to make sure you understand your rights about peaceful protesting.
It's so great. In 2020, the Stasi are chirpy. We're here as a proactive measure to inform you of your rights, not because we've been spying on your social media. So to recap, donating to the truckers is criminal. Saying anything positive about the truckers gets the police to show up at your house. That's why truckers are the new QAnon, Russia, white supremacist extremist threat. Our leaders in this country agree. In Michigan, dopey old Gretchen Whitmer is plotting to attack them with bulldozers. Watch.
Do police need to begin arresting people in the blockade?
You know, I'm not going to weigh into how they proceed. I'm going to tell you right now, though, they have to get it done. And using whatever tool it takes to safely and swiftly end this is what we're calling on them to do. Trucker-inspired protests in the U.S., potentially in your state, would you forcibly clear people? Brianna, if people are breaking the law, obviously we'll assess it at the time, but we are working very closely with our federal partners and the state police. The fact of the matter is we're going to do everything we can to prevent that from happening in the first place.
Working closely with our federal partners, says the human mask lady. Keep in mind, they're not talking about ISIS. These are truck drivers, the people who bring you food. They're unarmed, they're waving Canadian flags and talking about love. A lot of them brought their kids. Should CNN's national security contributors and the neoliberal politicians who are attacking them really weigh into this fight? No, because they can't win it. One side is too sympathetic and the other is too loathsome. But they can't help themselves. They are so threatened by disobedience, they rush forward with swords drawn. They know if Canadian truckers can get away with this, the game is over. So they must crush anyone who questions the high priests of neoliberalism. And that category includes plenty of people on the right, obviously, but tellingly, it includes plenty of people who aren't on the right, but just feel like thinking for themselves. It includes anyone who invests in Bitcoin, as we said. It includes Sikh truck drivers in Ottawa who now work for Putin, and Joe Rogan, who's now a racist, and David Portnoy, who's now a sex offender, and Tavis Smiley, who's now a serial harasser. Those aren't right-wingers. They're just people who dared to say what they think. That slander hasn't worked, and it won't work here. You can't cancel a bridge full of 18-wheelers and shame them into driving away. They're going to try it tomorrow. There's going to be a showdown in Windsor, Ontario. We'll see what happens. But the rest of the world has already learned the lesson, which is if you resist, if you say, I've had enough, peacefully, cheerfully, with love, they have to pay attention. The only thing they pay attention to.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.